Hey everyone, today I'm having a look at the Silverstone Temjin TJ08-E. This is an interesting little case. It has a removable motherboard tray, front panel USB 3, it has dust filters throughout the case. It fits any current graphics cards including the 6990 and the GTX 590. Included with the case is a whole bunch of screws for hardware installation, as well as 4 small cable ties, a Silverstone case badge, a converter from USB 3 to USB 2, also this rubber pad which sticks on one side. I'll show you what this is for shortly, and the user manual. Now for a look at the front of the case. At the top you can see two 5.25 inch bays. On the front panel we have two USB 3 ports, a headphone and microphone jack. Moving across, there are two indicator LEDs for hard drive activity and power. Then a reset and power button. Moving down, there's a large ventilated area. Behind this is the 180mm included Silverstone Air Penetrator Fan. At the bottom you can see a cutout which acts as a dual purpose 3.5 inch bay for external devices or an internal hard drive. The front panel is made from brushed aluminium, while the rest of the case is actually made from steel. The entire case is black, including the internals. So there's a dust filter in the front of the case, in behind this mesh. So that's a dust filter for the 180mm fan. The front dust filter can actually be accessed from either side of the case. There's a fan speed switch on the front side of the case for high and low. Now looking at the top panel of the case. So this is the power supply ventilation, and it has a removable magnetic dust filter. Very easy to remove and clean. Both side panels are blank and identical. Just a quick look at the inside of one of the side panels. Now for a look at the inside of the case. So this case fits Micro-ITX, Mini-DTX and Mini-ITX motherboards. The motherboard actually gets installed into this case upside down, so the expansion slots are at the top. There's a large cutout in the motherboard tray for accessing CPU cooler backplates. The motherboard tray is actually removable, which I'll show you shortly. You can see the guides down there holding the motherboard tray in place. For cable management, we have a cutout just there, a cutout there, and another one down there. So this case has 4 expansion slots with ventilated expansion slot covers. It has plenty of ventilation around the expansion slots. It fits a 120mm fan in the back of the case. This case also fits graphics cards up to 343mm in length. Down the bottom here we have an adjustable CPU cooler support. So that's the adjustment there. Or you can just leave it flat if you don't want to use it. When I show you the bottom of the case, you'll see that there's even more adjustment that can be done. CPU coolers of up to 165mm high can be installed into this case. So the power supply is top mounted, and this case fits standard PS2 ATX power supplies of up to 160mm. So the power supply has its own compartment in the top of the case. You can see the ventilation from the bottom. Also ventilation just there, which is for expelling more hot air away from graphics cards. That goes into the back part of the case through the motherboard tray. There's a cutout just there for routing all your power supply cables, and then there's plenty of room behind the motherboard tray to route all those cables out where they need to go. So just look at the 5.25 inch drive bays from the side. So moving down, you can see the included 180mm Silverstone Air Penetrator Fan. So it's got all this cable here wrapped up here. It goes to the high and low switch, and then the fan hooks up to a 3-pin header. Just some specifications on the included fan. So the RPM is from 700 to 1200, and the noise is from 18 to 34 decibels. A 140mm fan can also be installed in this fan position. So you can see that the USB 3 ports run off an internal USB 3 motherboard header. Now for a look at the 3.5 inch drive bays. So this case fits up to 5 3.5 inch hard drives. It fits 4 in the top hard drive cage, and in the bottom compartment it fits a 3.5 inch or a 2.5 inch drive, or any 3.5 inch device. Both of the hard drive compartments are removable. The top hard drive cage can be removed from the bottom hard drive compartment. Now just looking at the top of the 3.5 inch bays. So you can see this here for cable management, and this piece of plastic here, this is actually a support for long graphics cards, and the rubber pad included in the case accessories actually goes on top of this piece of plastic to stop vibration. So this is to prevent graphics cards from sagging and putting pressure on the motherboard, and it's only for graphics cards longer than approximately 230mm, which are installed into the top expansion slot of this case, which is actually the bottom expansion slot because the motherboard in this case is turned upside down. So you can see there's some anti-vibration foam. So now I've removed all 5 of the 3.5 inch drive bays, so now you can get a better look at that included Silverstone Air Penetrator Fan. Just a quick look around the hard drive cage, which I've removed. So that part faces towards the back of the case, and that faces towards the rear side panel. So you can see all these for cable management, and that faces towards the front of the case. So that's what it looks like without the upper hard drive cage installed. Now looking at the back of the case, you can see there's plenty of ventilation. Even ventilation here, which goes in behind the motherboard tray. To access the expansion slot screws, this cover needs to be removed. So you access those screws from the outside of the case instead of the inside of the case. This just leaves more room on the inside of the case. Alright, now having a look at the back of the case. So you can see all the cutouts. They're all burred over nicely so you don't cut yourself. Lots of these for cable management. There's approximately 20mm of space for cable management behind the motherboard tray, but up here behind the power supply compartment there's even more space. I'd say approximately 40 to 50mm there. There's a big gap down there which could be for cable management if necessary. Alright, now it's time to remove this motherboard tray. So it's held on by 3 screws. There's one there, there's one down there, and there's also one at the back just there. Now just looking at the case from the other side without the motherboard tray. So here's the motherboard tray outside the case. Now looking at the bottom of the case, the standoffs are rubber. So that's the extra adjustment that I was talking about for the CPU cooler support. Over here we have 4 screws which are for undoing the hard drive cage assembly. Okay, so this case is actually for a client build, so I'm putting a system into it. I'm in the process of doing it, and I went to put the power supply in and realised that it can only be put in from the top, which means that the top panel needs to be removed for the power supply to be installed. I've just finished installing the system into this case. The specifications are an Asus P8Z68M Pro, a Core i3-2100, a 4GB stick of Corsair Vengeance DDR3, 1600 MHz, 99924, 1.5 volts, and it's the high profile in blue, a 2TB Western Digital green, and a Corsair CX430. Just a quick look at the back panel. So I have a 120mm NMAX TB silence fan installed into the back of the case. I've just got the system up and running now because I wanted to give you a listen to the Silverstone Air Penetrator Fan. It's extremely silent, inaudible actually. I can't hear it from back here at all. I'll just give you a quick listen to it. You're probably mostly hearing the airflow. I'll just change the speed of the fan using the high and low speed switch. So that was on low before, now it's on high, and now I can definitely hear the fan, but it's not too bad. I'll just give you a listen. With the side panel on, I think you'd just be able to hear it. The airflow in this case is just excellent for its size. Even with the Silverstone Air Penetrator on low, I can put my hand around the back of the case, around the back of the ventilated expansion slots there, and feel heaps of air blowing out of the back. The cable management, I mean, can you see any cables? I've managed to hide all of them because the design of this case is so good. You can just see a few cables there which are actually the front panel cables, but all the power supply cables for the system I could hide. Now just quickly looking at the cable management. So the power supply that I used is non-modular, so there was a lot of extra cables, but I was able to hide them all up in the corner there out of sight, and there's a cable tie notch there so I could tie them into position. The rest of the cables were just so easy to deal with. The cutouts are in exactly the right spots and there's enough of them to hide everything. One little gripe that I have for this case, I mean, the front panel cables that come pre-installed should be a lot shorter because they only need to go from here, the back of the front panel, to about here, which is where the motherboard is, where the front panel connectors are, and at the most the front panel audio needs to go across to about here, so they really should be shorter. But even still, they were very easy to hide and it really wasn't a problem. That sums up this review. Please click subscribe, like and favourite if you want to see more. Thanks everyone.